everybody. We're going to go ahead and get started. I'm so happy everyone's fellowshipping. My name's Marsha Hampton. I'm the city manager for the city of Douglasville, and welcome to the town hall meeting for Ward 2, sponsored by Councilman Miller and Councilman Adams. The way the program's going to flow this evening is I'll turn the mic over to them. They'll make some introductions. Staff has prepared a presentation based on issues and concerns and just topics that they want to prepare and send to you all that are really ward specific and then general all over the city. So that presentation will be about 15 to 20 minutes. So if you can hold your questions until staff is done with the presentation, and then we'll open it up for questions on anything that we've presented or any other question that you have for anyone on staff and any of the elected officials. So with that, I'll turn it over to Councilman Miller.
Is this working? Is this working? Yes. Everybody hear me? I appreciate everybody coming out. This is actually our first town hall meeting, so wish we had the whole ward here, but we don't. But we have a good representation of folks and appreciate y'all coming out. It's raining, so we can blame it on that. But we do have a lot of good folks who call me often and have issues, and we appreciate y'all coming here and helping us. We do have our chief of police and his crew to present some information regarding Ward 2. My director, Greg Roberts, who's if you enjoy your trash being picked up, that's the guy who's in charge of all that. Let's see, we've got, I'm sorry, dude, help me out. Devin Hooper, right? And Patrice, who, Devin is, you're like our adjunct zoning guru, aren't you? And then Patrice runs Main Street and a bunch of other stuff. But we appreciate having them out. We appreciate having City TV put this. Is this going to be aired, I would assume? So we'll be able to get those who could not join us tonight will be able to see it on the television. Everybody's seen the agenda. Oh, I also want to recognize Councilman Mark Adams. I don't know that everybody knows this, but Mark and I share what's called a super ward. Up until 4 years ago, the downtown was divided, and prior to my existence, the council turned it into a super ward. So actually, Ward 2 folks have 2 representatives on the city council, which that's important when it comes to road paving and other amenities that y'all want to get. With that, I think I'm going to turn it over to Councilman Adams and see what he has to say.
I just wanted to introduce myself. I know that I've been in office now. This is my 6th year, so I've run for election and run for re-election and somehow survived it. And I've probably been to the majority of your doors at some point in time over those last 5 or 6 years, if we were allowed to solicit votes in your community. But I want to thank each of you for being here. I know this is a re-election year that Mike is kicking off. I'm in a quiet time, I guess you would say, but we just appreciate the turnout and appreciate you all coming to be better informed citizens. I remember saying at one of the forums when I was running for re-election that I never heard from anyone in the ward. I've had my same phone number since 1978, and no one ever called. So when they asked the question, I had to take a step back and say, wait a minute, am I not answering calls or emails? But I do check those regularly. I do have a city cell phone, do have the same home number, as I said, since 1978, and I want to be accessible to you. So by all means, don't hesitate to call, and we'll do everything that we can to help you. I serve as the Planning and Development Chair in our Planning and Development Committee on the council, and also Community and Economic Development. So I work closely with both Devin and with Patrice, and I want to echo Mike's point about being so appreciative of the staff and everyone that's here tonight to basically be able to answer any questions, we hope, because there's no way that Mike nor I could have had any way of knowing what questions you might have. So now that we have staff and those departments with us, hopefully we'll do a good job of getting you answers to your questions. And by all means, if we don't have the answer, we'll have someone that can help us to get that answer. I also want to thank Kelly and her staff, everyone that's come out to make this a public event for us as far as the City TV. Appreciate all that you do. So with that, I'll turn it over to the first presenter. Thank you.
Mark, if I may, thanks for covering everything I didn't. One thing hopefully you'll see is the downtown area over the last 2 or 3 years has made substantial strides. We're really working to make it more of a destination area. We're working with the 92 relocation program. Part of tonight is a downtown master plan that many folks in the area are members of and working toward that. So with a lot of planning and a lot of organization, a lot of volunteer work from the folks in the area, Ward 2 has really made a lot of strides in the last couple of years, and we're in the middle of pushing that forward. So you'll see through the master plan, through some other reports tonight, this is mainly focused on Ward 2, but I think there's some other general information regarding the city. So with that being said, Marcia?
All right. Thank you, Councilman Miller. And just before staff starts to present, Councilman Miller touched on something as far as planning and a variety of things that we do. As far as my approach to staff, one of the things that I try to do is whatever policies or overarching themes that the elected officials would like to move forward based on information that they receive from you all, that drives what we do internally in the office. So if it's downtown planning, downtown master planning, our thought process is our job as staff and our roles and responsibilities are to give the best advice and information to the elected officials so then they can make the decisions regarding planning and efforts to provide for quality of life initiatives that are to the benefit of the citizens of Douglasville. So the things that we bring forth here, hopefully they are, I shouldn't say hopefully, but they are done based on a plan, based on a process that has been well thought out and involves citizen input. Part of what this town hall process that I think is great that both elected officials are doing, it adds to the level of transparency that they want you involved in local government and adding to their thought process and the decisions that they're making. Devin Hooper, as Mike said, is he's wearing 2 hats. He's our planner in our planning and development department. He's also serving as our deputy zoning official. So he sees a lot of items, and today he's going to cover what's happening in O'Neal Plaza. I know there are a lot of questions. When is it going to get done? When is it over? Why are you doing it again? Didn't we do this 3 or 4 times? So any of those questions, there are many of us who will be able to answer, but he's going to give you a status of that.
Thank you, Marcia. Thank you, Councilman Adams, Councilman Miller. So yeah, I'm here to give y'all sort of an update on the O'Neal Plaza that I'm sure everybody's seen is in construction right now. The project is being constructed by JHC Construction. It's projected to finish mid-October, barring no more weather. Rain seems to be always a factor whenever it comes to these types of construction projects. Right now, they're working on, I'm not sure if many of you have seen this last week, they've poured the steps along the Broad Street here and along the plaza here, so there'll be steps that come onto the stage area. The next big thing that's going to happen is they're going to come in and start actually putting in the pavement that goes across the plaza. Most of you have already seen a lot of the walls have already been put in around the plaza. This area over here is going to be or both of them are going to be landscaped. It's going to be lit. There will be 8 light poles throughout the plaza and several benches throughout the plaza for seating. And then as they make their way down towards Church Street, we'll get into putting a beautiful new water fountain. So the water fountain that used to be down on this end, we're moving a water fountain down to this end, and it's going to be a new design, a lot of jets, uplighting. So the city council the mayor and city council did a very good job of picking out the water fountain design. I think it looks really, really pretty. It's going to be really good to be downtown. Another thing that's been great, we had the vote for SPLOST recently, and one thing that the SPLOST money is going to help to do is actually we're reincorporating the Welcome Center. So when this was originally done back in 2013, 2014, when they started the the new plaza. The Welcome Center was going to get a much needed update, new kitchens and new offices. Patrice, who works in that office, can attest it does need a little bit of tender love and care. It recently, a couple years ago, was cut out, but luckily with SPLOST money, we're actually putting it back in. So now the Welcome Center will have a whole new look on the inside, a new kitchen, 2 new public restrooms, men and women's restrooms in the back so people can come from the plaza and use them. And hopefully it'll be a lot more welcoming for the city and hopefully bring in more tourists and be very nice for people to come into. So that's all I had on the plaza. Thank you.
As I asked Greg Roberts to come on up again, if you'll just allow us to present, that way we can get through all the information, and feel free to answer, we'll answer any questions that you have. One of the things on the O'Neal Plaza renovation as well, some of you may or may not know, our visitor center is a regional visitor center, and part of that designation, we have to have ADA required restrooms, and currently right now in that building we do not. So part of what we're going to be able to do is to be able to uphold the standards that we have been designated for regional locations. So that goes to adding to the upgrades for the Welcome Center.
Excuse me. Hey, I'm Greg Roberts with the City of Douglasville Maintenance and Sanitation Department. Most of you realize that the department that I'm with is in Ward 2. We're on Club Drive, located at 8578 Club Drive. It's the old water filter plant. That's actually where my office is, and so it's an old facility. We're on less than 3 acres. We're on less than 3 acres of property, and these are some photos from some of our work routine. And so one of the things that we're doing that some of you are aware of is that the city owns just under 65 acres of land up off of Cedar Mountain Road or Chicago Avenue, north of the downtown area. And we're going to relocate the public works aspect of the property up there on about a 15-acre tract. But the 3-acre site that we work on now, there's about 50 employees that operate off of that. We have a number of community service and inmate detail, and so there's a lot of equipment. It's sort of like a shell game coming in and out over there every day, because everything has to kind of go back in the way it went out, you know. And once everything is on there, on the property, there's not a whole lot of room to park. Parking is one of our issues with our personnel and our city vehicles. As far as street maintenance, the city has about 150 miles of streets that we maintain, excluding the state highways. You know, we're blessed to be in the middle of State Route Highway 78, 5 and 92, which is both Fairburn Road and Dallas Highway. But all the streets that come off of there belong to the city of Douglasville, including the streets that you're on. And so we have a number of projects coming up, and Ms. Hampton will probably discuss those in greater detail here momentarily. But as you know, the voters in Douglas County and Douglasville passed the SPLOST in 2016, and that has given us the ability to release some funds to do some street resurfacing and improvement that we've not been able to do. Over the last several years, we've just not had the funds to do more than about $300,000 worth of resurfacing. If you know anything about asphalt, you'll know $300,000 does not get you anything. In fact, $300,000 will get you about 1.25 miles of resurfacing. So 1.25 miles. So if you see a list that has 5 or 6 streets for $300,000, it means those are cul-de-sacs. They're, you know, 1/10 of a mile here and 3/10 of a mile there. But thanks to you, the voters, we will have the ability to do a lot of resurface work that has needed to be done, including your streets. We do a lot of litter debris. Some people tend to be shocked. You know, you don't realize how much trash is on the road. A paper cup here and a cigarette butt there. But we do an average of about 42 tons of cleanup a year. That's everything from the street sweeper to the inmate detail picking up trash along the roads. That does not include illegally dumped tires. We do pick up some of those, unfortunately. We can't just leave them there, but that is not a part of this tonnage, and I don't have a current number for you. We also maintain the city's facilities. We have about 31 facilities at the city of Douglasville, buildings such as where my department's at, the police facilities, Parks and Recreation, City Hall, and those facilities. We also maintain our fleet. One of the issues with our current facility is it will not accommodate some of our large commercial vehicles, and so some of the lighter weight work that we probably could do on site, we have to send it out to a contractor, and so because our trucks just won't get into the garage. Sanitation is another aspect that we do. As in fact, I always introduce myself as the garbage man, and people's like, well, man, you're the garbage man. Well, yeah, that's the most important thing we do, because there's not a one of you sitting here, whether you're a resident or a business, if your garbage doesn't get taken care of, you're not a happy camper. So that's just the way it is. We pick up about 8,000 single-family dwellings every week. That does not include commercial apartment complexes. That's just single-family dwellings. It does include some duplex type residential. We do as you know, we do the solid waste, the recycling, and the yard waste. A lot of cities have gone away from yard waste, but we still do that as a service to you, the citizen. And you know about our annual spring and fall cleanup. You also know that you should know we do special pickups. If you have an old couch you need to get rid of, if you'll call us for a small fee, we will come and remove that for you. And so please don't dump it over at Sam's. There's a joke that most of us in-house know. We have had a recent rash again, and it comes in an ebb and tide. It's like anything else. We've had a rash of just illegal dumping. I mean, it's just like they said, well, this guy's house looks nice. We back up and just leave it all with you, you know. And so unfortunately, Sam's, which is probably all your favorite store like it is mine and my wife, they've been hit pretty hard lately. We also do commercial sanitation, both front load and roll off. A front load container is what most of us call a dumpster. Some of us old enough to remember when they used to call them a Dipsy dumpster. I don't really know why that was, but as a kid, it was a Dempsey dumpster. And so that's the one on the left there. We do the roll-off and compactor service. And so the department that I'm with is greatly funded by solid waste revenues. And we have a great commercial district in the city of Douglasville, places like the mall, Home Depot. We're very blessed at the city of Douglasville. We may get aggravated with the traffic, but our commercial district really does a lot of heavy lifting for the city of Douglasville. And well, I'll come back later if you've got any questions. I don't think I have anything else other than you'll see some additional work going on with streets, and you'll see some things like that either between the local newspaper or city TV coming in the next few weeks. Yes, ma'am.
So when I go out to the landfill and I go around to that dumpster that says household trash, that's where a lot of people throw couches, tables, big chairs and everything. And one day I took a picture, I sent it to Chan, but I mean, there was a line of cars all the way from the Cedar Ridge all the way up to the gate, and people still coming in, and there was nobody backed up to take that away. It was completely so high that a gentleman on the back of his truck couldn't get anything on it. Therefore, it was spread all over the ground around there. And I understand that, you know, it's a problem, but the thing about it is, isn't there any way that household garbage to me is the garbage you take that's in a bag out of your trash can in your kitchen or wherever, and maybe some yard waste, but it's just getting loaded up with furniture, you know, and It just doesn't seem right, but I just was bringing it up. Is there anything that could be?
You're referring to the Cedar Mountain landfill up off of Cedar
Yes.
Mountain Road. That is a Douglas County operation, and I can check with my counterparts over there. You may have just been there at a time when they were maybe overloaded with customers and didn't have enough staff to cover. I can't speak.
Okay, I'm sorry. I'm always asking questions. They'll say city, county, city, county.
Well, we work close with them, and we have a great relationship with our county counterparts, and so I can check with them on that. But I'm not
Okay.
totally familiar with every aspect of what you mentioned.
Right.
And again, if we can hold our questions till the end, thank you, Ms. Kirby. No, that's okay. That's okay. I just want to make certain we get through all the information to provide to you all. And I know public safety is always a hot topic, so I want to make certain we get through that and you guys have enough time to answer all your questions. So we'll turn it over to Patrice Williams. Many of you have met Patrice. Patrice is our community development manager. She deals with a lot of things, community development that are not related to planning, zoning, and development. So what she deals with typically involves housing and Main Street and downtown development. Patrice is spearheading our latest downtown master plan. Some of you who are familiar with the one that we did back in 2009. We're going to do things quite differently. The process is very different. Our intent is to make certain that once we are done with this plan, that we actually have standing deliverables that can be implemented for the benefit of the community that would also include zoning initiatives to drive development in specific areas that are beneficial to enhance quality of life issues. So.
All right, good evening, everyone. As Marsha said, I'm Patrice Williams. First of all, I want to recognize our board member, our Downtown Development Authority board member, Nicole Jarrett. Thank you for coming out tonight. Over the past several months, can you hear me now? Okay. Over the past several months, City Council and Mayor have worked closely with the Downtown Development Authority in recruiting a consultant to help us implement a downtown master plan. And as Marsha stated earlier, you guys have gone through one before. I felt like I was here. I've heard so many stories about it, but I was not here at the time. But I know Scott Powers participated, so some of you are very familiar with that process. And what Marsha said is true. We're definitely trying to do it different this time. We want to work together with our residents, our downtown business owners, our property owners, of course, our elected officials, and making sure we have something that we can implement that's fiscally sound, that fits within our budget, that makes sense as far as creating that blueprint as we move our community forward. Next slide. All right. So I already said that, Kelly, so. So anyway, we had our first meeting several weeks ago. It was our kickoff meeting, and we had a great time. We had a lot of people there. We have created a steering committee, so we had about 60 people there. While we have a steering committee that's part of the process, it is certainly open to the public. So we want everyone's participation. We want to hear from you. So we begin having our visioning sessions, thinking big, coming up with some fun things that can happen in our downtown, giving that to the to TSW, our consultant, so they can write a plan, as I said, that we can implement. While we are looking to implement things in our downtown, we are focusing on the jail as well. Now, we are partnering with the Douglas County Development Authority and taking a look at that. We know that's very important in our downtown. It is owned by the county, but it's in our downtown. So we all have a vested interest. The county has an interest because it's their property, but certainly it's in our downtown. So we're definitely vested to it as well. So we're taking a look at that. I will say the County Development Authority has given us a little money to help us implement this plan. The focus areas you see are Church Street, Strickland Street, Rose Avenue, and again, the old jail. So we've downsized this area from 2008, 2009. It's not as big. It does not include the old mill. I know there's been some talk that it does, but it does not. It's a little smaller. We want to get as much bang for our dollar as possible, but we also wanted to make sure we're focusing on the core areas of the downtown, those entry points, and particularly with the relocation project for Highway 92 and how that's going to impact the downtown. So we want to make sure that we have the immediate downtown focused on at this point. So my part is really quick. So our next meeting is scheduled for July the 11th. It's our committee meeting. We're asking again for everyone that's interested to come out to share their ideas. We'll be hearing back from TSW. They'll be coming back out, looking at the jail, reporting on that, telling us what they think we can do with that area, along with as far as creating that economic development blueprint for our downtown. Right now, we're a Main Street community, so we do create a work plan every year. So we have these things in place that we do. We try to focus on the design of the community, organization, so the partnerships that we have. We try to focus on economic development, which is recruiting those businesses to our community, and organizations. So we're making sure we're partnering with the CAC. We're making sure that we're in touch with HPC, all those groups that are here in the community. But we also need a plan, something that can forecast our future. Doing it year to year is great, but we need to make sure we're going in the right direction when it comes to economic development, making sure we're getting in touch with those businesses that want to be here in the downtown, the coffee shops, the other restaurants that we're trying to get. So we just want to make sure we have things in place that makes downtown Douglasville even more attractive.
Okay, budget. So I'll cover the budget fairly quickly, and then following the budget, we will move on to public safety. Last night at our regular city council meeting, the elected officials unanimously approved the budget presented by staff. We did have a 2-day workshop on June 1st and 2nd to go over the budget and the budget recommendations by staff. We also had a public meeting on June 5th. We reviewed the budget again on the 15th, and then last night on the 19th, we adopted the budget. Typically, that's during the time that we do adopt the budget. There's always questions about the millage rate. We do base the budget prior to setting the millage rate, which usually comes in August, but because we don't get our tax digest until usually sometimes typically in July. This is a breakdown of our general revenues. We have a total of approximately $27.3 million. As you can see, the bulk of our revenues come from taxes. There's a small percentage that comes from licenses, charges for service, fines, and forfeitures. But we are pretty much primarily taxes, and very different than some communities that have utilities or other types of services where they generate revenues. That's our primary tax base. Breakdown of those taxes, so that big piece of the pie, this is where we break it down to tell you that 21 million of the 27, the bulk of those are property taxes and sales taxes. So when those two fluctuate, it really does affect the budget dramatically. So when property values are down, it dramatically affects the budget. When people aren't spending, a good example are fuel prices are down, so sales taxes are down. So fuel prices are down, which is good because we're not paying as much for gas, but for city revenues, it's not so great. And then we also get a small percentage from other locations as well, but the bulk, that 21 million of the 27, comes from both property and sales taxes. Millage rate history. So we get a lot of questions about the millage rate. Of course, you know, this rate is applied to the tax digest, which determines how much you all pay in property taxes. So years ago, back in 1999, our millage rate was at 4.6. So we keep this chart. We present it to the elected officials every year. And I'll show you another chart. This millage rate does not necessarily reflect the revenues that we generate. It just reflects the rate in which is applied to determine the value in which you pay on those taxes. The bond millage is the bond millage for the public safety building, and you can see where that's located. Back in 2014 and 15, the millage rate was increased to handle service delivery and the intergovernmental agreements with the county. That covered $1.6 million as you, as a city taxpayer, pays toward fire services annually, and another $300,000 that you pay toward animal control services to the county. 1 mil is approximately about a little shy of $1 million. So that's the reason why that 5.7 went to 7.5. Last year, the mayor and council decided that they did not want to advertise for a tax increase, so the millage rate was rolled back. So that's why we are at 6.99. Our recommendation for 2017 is to keep the millage rate the same, because every time you roll back any realized property tax increase that you receive, you have to make up for that in your overall operating budget. So granted, yes, you may be receiving some additional revenues where you are having to advertise for a property tax increase, but however, that doesn't necessarily mean that overall you're realizing that money, that you're making money from that. In the next slide, you'll be able to see what I'm explaining. The net digest back in 2000, and if you look at 2006, 7, and 8, before the economy crashed, that's where our net digest was. So part of the reason that we're not recommending rolling the millage rate back is because in 2017, we still haven't made up for where we used to be, and services actually have not changed. Services have actually increased. So no different than in your household, if your living expenses increase but your salary decreases, you're having to make up that amount somewhere. So our budget that we presented to the mayor and council last night was a budget based on not rolling back the millage rate, but keeping it the same. In order for us to, at a minimum, at least get to a place where we were in 2017 to be able to afford those services that we're providing. And the other that the mayor and council are looking at is to make certain that we have 6 months of reserves in our reserve fund. Currently, right now, we have just a little bit over 5 months. So in order for us to get to that 6 months, it's going to take us probably about another year or two, as long as the digest continues to increase. But that's part of the reason why when we recommend not rolling back the millage rate, it's more so based on the digest. Our expenses, so as typical in most governments, public safety is typically your largest expense. There's just a lot of training, a lot of equipment that's involved in public safety that's no different than any other government. General government, that includes your communications department, that includes city administration, all of those things, including legislative, your elected officials. So when you combine all those together, that pretty much equals public safety, and then you have some of the other departments as well, and that makes up the $27.3 million. Some of the budget highlights that are included in the budget that was just approved, we have about $4.5 million in street resurfacing. Just recently, the mayor and council approved for an engineering firm to go out and do an analysis of all the streets in the city, and about $9 million was identified in streets that needed repair. Those streets are based on most needed, moderately needed, and could wait a little bit. So that $4.5 million represents the most needed streets as far as resurfacing and attention, and the goal is to at least get a significant amount of those streets put out to bid for resurfacing this fiscal year. Sometime later this summer, Mr. Roberts will present a list to the elected officials of a group of streets. You will have some streets in Ward 2 that will be included in that list. I will tell you, resurfacing is not a pretty job when it's happening, so some people will be a little bit frustrated, but I can guarantee the end product will be well. Greg Roberts and I have talked about this. What the voters have approved and we're able to do via this SPLOST, we can potentially get every road in the city limits resurfaced through this program, which is huge for us because it means catching up and being able to repair a lot of our city infrastructure. We've purchased some equipment. The knuckle boom truck helps to clear debris. So the other night when we had the bad storms, Greg's staff is out cleaning those things up. It takes heavy equipment to be able to get those. We're always asked about the street sweeper. So those are some of the heavy pieces of equipment that we were able to purchase. Parks and Recreation. We have started, and actually last night authorized the contract to go out for bid for the West Pines greens conversion. That will close West Pines for a period of about 25 days, less than a month. I don't have the exact date as of yet because the contract has not been signed, but it will be toward the end of the summer. That will be changing the greens in West Pines from bent grass to Bermuda grass, which will help us maintain those grass more efficiently and cost effectively and maintain a longevity of play on the course. We're also looking at a master plan for our park system. Most all municipalities have a master plan for their park system. What the master plan does is it basically takes an evaluation of your citizen base and your park amenities, and it evaluates what park amenities do you really need. What should you be offering that you currently don't have? What should you be providing that you currently don't have? What things should you phase out that you're actually providing that you should not be providing? And usually that's a 10-year plan, and that allows for better budget preparation and allows the elected officials to be able to address many of the questions that you have about the variety of the things in our park system. In the realm of public safety, as you know, I think we've mentioned in a couple meetings before, we've implemented body cameras for our patrol officers, tag readers, crime scene software. And we also are allowed to purchase police vehicles. This current budget that was approved, the mayor and council authorized 4 additional police officers in the police department. 4 vehicles is a pretty hefty price tag, so to the benefit of the SPLOST, that's about $500,000 that we can take off of the general operating budget to come out of SPLOST. So that's huge. And then we have had questions about the old mill. So we did put in $100,000 for old mill cleanup. That is a rough estimate number. So we have to do more research on what it costs to clean up, but we did program in a number so we can start that process. Also, Devin mentioned earlier the Welcome Center to help upgrade those. Just like with our streets, many of our city facilities, probably with the exception of our public safety building, are in real need of renovation and repair. So the benefit to the SPLOST is making certain that we are looking like the city in which we know that we are, and that our facilities and systems are upgraded. And with that, I will turn it over to the police department, and following their presentation, we are open up for questions for anything that you may have. It's on you, Chief.
I'm Gary Sparks, the police chief for the city of Douglasville. I have with me here tonight Captain Tommy Demons and Lieutenant Wayne Kelly and Deputy Chief Sue Ann Shaw. We have some package that we're going to give out to you all. This will be our 3rd town hall meeting. We have had 3 town hall meetings at the police department. Anybody show? Were any of you all there? All right, we have had 3 town hall meetings at the police, well, 4 actually. We had 3 for this, I say for the community and 1 for the business community. So we're going to be having some more coming up before the year's end. But the information that Deputy Chief Shaw is giving you is information on our first quarter stats. Last year, we gave a closing year stats. So this time around, we're going to give quarterly stats so you can see what we're doing, how we're serving you. The police department is serving you. So if you look at this thing, it's going to tell you about the calls for services that we have. All our calls are dispatched through 911. They tell you the number of arrests that we have made, the number of investigations that the detective division is doing, the written warrants, citation, the number of use of force that we have had this year, the community events, you'll see 43. So we are big with the community. Our philosophy now is that we going to move from, we're not intruders in the community, we are guardians of the community. Our philosophy at the police department is that we are one with the community. We set the pace. So we set the pace of ensuring that we're transparent, that we are policing, dealing with the philosophy of procedural justice, and we treat everybody right. Just like the old saying when you were growing up, possibly, do unto others as you have them to do unto you. That's our philosophy these days. So if you see 43 events, and we just in May. Wow, we got a lot more to do. Hiring, we hired 4 officers. Presently we are down 2 officers. Our total allotment is 98.7, In a few more weeks, we're going to hire a guy, so that'll put us, I think, about 96. So we just about where we are if we don't lose any more officers. Code enforcement, you can see what their stats are as well. But we're a full-fledged police department. We have a detective division, a patrol division. We have a narcotic gang division. That's what I was talking to one of my gang investigators. We're doing some undercover things that hopefully in a few weeks you'll be reading it in the paper. But we have motor division, K9. Matter of fact, we just purchased another K9. That's about, what, $12,000. We got a K9. I don't even know his name yet, but he comes to us from Germany. I think he come from, where he come from? Germany somewhere. That's where we get him. Belgium Malinois. That's the type of dog we use now. So we just got him on staff, and he'll be ready to go very soon. But I'm going to be quiet because I'll take over and be talking all night. But you can look through this package. And here's this crimereports.com. Go to our website, pull up crimereport.com, and you can see the crimes that are occurring in your area. You can look at your address and see what type of crimes we're having. So go to crimereport.com. It'll let you know on what you need to do to be safe in your community. Also, I think it's some safety tips in here that will give you an idea on some of the things you could do to keep yourself safe. Now, one of the things we're doing here at the police department, we try to train our citizens just like we train our officers, because I feel if our citizens are trained to know what to look for, how to best prepare themselves when they go into situations. And you may go somewhere and we have an active shooter situation. What should I do? So our goal is to train you all so you can be best prepared to negotiate through some of these crime waves that we see is going on in the metro area. And by keeping you abreast on what's going on, I feel that'll help us decrease the crime rate here in Douglasville. I'm going to be quiet and let Wayne talk about the code enforcement. Oh, stats. Sue-Ann, you want to come and talk about the stats? Usually, I'm going to tell you something. I don't deal with these PowerPoints. I just go from what I know it's in my heart. So, you got it?
These stats you see on the screen right here are actually a summary from the front page of the packet that I gave you the first quarter. These are citywide. Go ahead, Kelly. We tried to break them down into Ward 2, and Ward 2 and Zone 2 are two different things. The police operate in zones. The councilmen operate in wards, but they're very similar. But these are numbers from Ward 2 for the number of reports and the number of arrests made from 2014 through 2016. We switched over CAD software between 15 and 16, so there were some problems with the data conversion and the numbers, so I only did the 2016 numbers for the calls for service in our Zone 2 area there. And these are the year-to-date code enforcement stats for the entire city. So I'll let Lieutenant Kelly talk about those.
I'm Lieutenant Kelly. I work for the police department, and I'm over the code enforcement division. I've got three guys that work for me, and we just got another code enforcement officer, but as luck would have it, she got deployed, and we won't get her back until October. But my division, we cover a lot of area, and we work closely with most every other department in the city. Greg Roberts was talking about illegal dumping earlier. We work really close with sanitation. Their drivers are out all the time. They see things, they'll call it back to us. One case we had was at Eastfield Shopping Center. It was horrible. There's a dumpster that was out there, and people were illegally dumping stuff all around the dumpster. Looked bad. We spent several weeks on it, wound up tracking a bunch of folks down, and a bunch of folks got citations for illegally dumping. We're also working with Greg to see if we can reposition that dumpster maybe to alleviate that problem in the future. But our main goal is to provide or assist in providing a quality of life for the citizens of Douglasville. We want to make sure you got a clean, safe environment. We have two aspects of our division that we work with. One is residential. We also do commercial. We enforce city ordinance on both sides of that. So we work with finance as far as business license. We make sure that people have their business license. We work with zoning. We make sure that properties are abiding by the zoning ordinances. So we just want to make sure that we can cover as much as we can with what we got across the city. You can find us on the police department's website. If you see something that you think might be a code violation, you can submit it online. You can call us at the police department. There's several different ways that you can contact us, but we want to make sure that we got a clean, safe city. What it means is the International Property Maintenance Code. It's a set of regulations. There's an international plumbing code, international electric code, and that's what we use for some building violations. We work with the building department. We're separate from the building department. They have building inspectors that will go out, and we work with them if they need us to. But most of our focus is on property maintenance, which is also covered under that as well. Like if you got a deck that's falling off your house, shutters falling off your house, we look at aspects of that. It's the visual, what we can see from up front without having to go inside the house.
Well, I think at this point, we're done with staff presentations, but staff are here. I'm going to turn it back over to Councilman Miller and Adams, and this is the time. The town hall is set till 8 o'clock, so it's about 10 after. Councilman Miller, I'll hand the mic to you.
Marsha, are we going to have time for some questions after this? Okay. So I just want to thank Marsha, first of all. In the last 2 years since she's been city manager, there has been a great push to do some planning, and she has stuck by that, and she's done a wonderful job. So thank you, Marsha and Ms. Hampton, for being dedicated. It's funny, we kind of grew up together from an adult standpoint. I was the Downtown Development Authority chair when she became the Main Street manager. So we've kind of grown up. I have a lot of respect for her. She's doing a great job, as well as everybody else who's made the presentations. I know that there are some questions.
Councilman Miller, Councilman Adams, I just want to thank you all on a number of different occasions. I've had the opportunity to speak with you. You've always been receptive in taking my call. Most of the time, I feel like you wind up in the right place with the decisions you make. I can't expect you to ever do that 100% of the time. It just doesn't work that way. But I thank you for being open and available to us. And Marsha, I think you've done a tremendous job at the helm of the city. A question I have, we're in the process of organizing a downtown neighborhood. I'm guilty of that process taking the better part of the last year. It's time to step up and get it done. But I hear a lot of feedback from different residents, and one of the questions that I get has a lot to do with code enforcement. I understand it's a tremendous task. I also know as a resident of Campbellton Street, sometimes you feel like you don't want to dial 911 to report a code enforcement. It just doesn't seem like a good use of that resource. So I guess I'm curious. I mean, it doesn't. I think everyone in this room could ride around and could cite the home on Adair Street that has a party blocking the street at least every Friday and Saturday afternoon, evening through the weekend. They could cite the apartments behind the Cultural Arts Center that are probably look like they need to be brought to the ground and rebuilt, where the fence is falling apart and it looks like there's doors and windows hanging loose and it's just an eyesore. Various properties that have never ever mowed their grass in the last 3 or 4 years. Those are simple things. Those don't necessarily directly affect my safety but they do affect the perception when people come to visit our town. April, you're a real estate agent. They affect the perception when someone looks to make an investment and buy in our community. So I guess my question is, what can we do to create a better direct line with code enforcement, and how can we address some of these issues that have been in plain sight, kind of nagging us for the better part of the last couple of years?
Yes, sir. As I stated up there, there's several different ways that you can contact us. We're always open for communication. We have our website, the police department's website. You can find code enforcement on there. There's always the report a code violation. In the same way you can do the report a crime. You can call the police department. They'll put you through to us. Before you leave, I'll give you my card that's got my email on it, my phone numbers. I'll be happy to take anybody's emails and phone calls. We want you to identify these problem areas. We want you to call us. I know what you mean. It is hard sometimes because you feel like you're fighting a losing battle. We do. We go out and we try to get these properties cleaned up. The one behind the Cultural Arts Center, Ashley Townhomes. You may not believe it, but it looks better than it did. And that's because my guys have been out there. We've been on the property owners to try to get this place cleaned up. It's a work in progress. We're still working, trying to. There's other properties that are out there, may not ever get to the point that I want to get to, but we're always going to work towards making this a destination for people to come, making a clean, safe city. That's our goal. I've got 3 guys and I work them hard every day.
If I could follow up to that, I know we worked hard this past year to get y'all funding for a 4th person. It was the first time I've heard that now that 4th person's going to be deployed. Obviously, the council thought that it was important to get a 4th person out there to enable y'all to do the job. Now it appears that we're not going to have that 4th person, or is there a plan in place to?
Right now, we do appreciate the fact that the council and you did work to get us another person. It just kind of worked out that way. I mean, she's still going to come back, but it'll be after her deployment.
She's serving the city of Douglasville, and she's serving the country. She's deployed. She will be back. When she comes back, she'll be in code enforcement. Now, those apartments that Wayne is talking about, sometimes these owners are in another state, so we deal with this. We deal with it all the time. So we're going to get to all the issue with the code, and there are some things we can and can't just get done as soon as you want it. We got people coming here they're buying property that's not here. So they're running down these people because I asked them to run these people down. Cutting the grass. Say, okay, we're going to get the grass cut. They write tickets. They may not go and give them a ticket the first time they go to this high grass. They tell them to get your grass cut. Or the next time we come by, we get a citation. So what we started out, the beginning of the year is not sort of like a kinder, gentler code enforcement. Say, and not going every time we go out hitting people over the head, writing them tickets. Because sometimes we write the ticket and you go to the court and they get it done, the judge kick it back right back out. I got your grass cut. Yeah, okay, right. It's gone.
Problem solved.
Problem solved. So what we hear you, we're working on, not only on this side of town, but all over the city of Douglasville. We want Douglasville to be beautiful when they get off the interstate. But when they come to Douglasville, believe you me, I get tired of seeing some of the old dilapidated buildings myself. But sometimes it takes time.
I had one quick follow-up question. I guess I'm just curious as far as the teeth that our code enforcement has, specifically, as an example, the apartment complex behind the Cultural Arts Center. That's looked like that for, 5, 8 years, as long as I've been here. So I understand taking a long time, I understand a process, I understand a kinder, gentler approach, but at what point is enough, and what teeth do we have to execute change in the case of a property that is extremely detractive to our community? It seems like we need to step up and just get it done, and we empower you all with the teeth to do that, whether it's bigger fines, whether it's condemning property, taking it, raising it to the ground and selling it to someone who's going to do something valuable with it. There's instances like that. It's time to get it done.
We're looking at that. Part of our planning process at the beginning of the year was to look at the structure of code enforcement. Myra with the Georgia, I can't think of her last name. Registered with the Georgia Municipal Association. She's got experience in this and gave us several suggestions. So it's not an immediate fix. Unfortunately, I think there's been some delay in some of the things we've done, but we're working on it. We've tried to add folks, and Ms. Hampton told me there's a way around it. She's got everything figured out. We recognize that there's a problem. I get frustrated driving down Campbellton Street and seeing 12, 14-inch grass and wondering why, especially when they cut part of their grass.
There's several of us. Right now, we would come out, we can issue citations, we can bring them into court, we can bring them before the judge. There's several things that I have looked at. There's several things that council people have looked at. Just for instance, there are some cities that have what's called a blight tax. And there's several things that would qualify a property as blighted. If they do that, I know Marietta has that. If a property is deemed blighted, then what would happen is they would be charged maybe 5 times the millage rate for a period until they fix the problem. If they fix the problem, the reward for fixing the problem is for a couple of years you would pay half the millage rate after that. It's all of them are tools. There's nothing that's a quick fix. Nothing. So as many tools as we got, if you got more tools, the better off you are. There's things that we plug away at. There's things that we'll get it to a point, and then something else will happen over here. And while we're dealing with that, that goes back down again, and we have to turn our attention to that again. So it's hard to give you a solid answer that this is what's going to happen. But we're trying.
I was just going to add, as far as tools and policy changes, those are all things. Wayne has mentioned a few things, and I can mention it to the elected officials. But to your point, Scott, as far as empowerment to be more aggressive, that's really a decision amongst the elected officials as to where they want to go with it. I mean, we can be full. I mean, there's some communities that pretty much condemnation is what they do, and they will take a building down and put a lien on it, and they move forward. That has not really been, as far as I know, the city of Douglasville's philosophy. However, if the city officials want that as a position, we'll make that happen.
Well, and we've got to listen to you guys. It's impossible for code enforcement to ride down every street. And I know folks down I'm sorry, I forgot your name of your subdivision. Fairways, down the fairways. Now, I don't ever go to the back of the fairways. I don't have a reason to go to the back of the fairways. So obviously, I don't have access to that on a daily basis. So you've got to call. I mean, I get calls pretty frequently about things I otherwise wouldn't know about. So kind of in a community policing effort, feel free to, feel free to call my cell phone every time.
Let me jump in here just a minute because I've had direct experience with the fairways, with the development when I first came into office, and as far as I know, the house in question is still sitting there. It's a piece of property that was severely damaged by a fire a number of years ago. One of our city employees actually lived across from it, and so she quickly chimed in to me to say, we need to get something done about this piece of property. In response to Scott's statement, I've learned that not everyone that owns property within our community lives here. More and more and more over the last 10 years, we have learned that many times the bank owns the property, but we don't know which bank, because they may have packaged and sold those foreclosed loans, or the bank may have sold or been taken over by the FDIC, and the new surviving bank may not even know that they own it. And so, having said that, I would defend Wayne and his staff in that area, in that there is so much legwork and paperwork and legal work to do to just find out who to send the notice to, who to call, who to drag into court. And if you're a mortgage company that's 1,000 miles away, probably one of the last things you're going to pay any attention to is, oh, I'm being fined $100 a day for a fine on a piece of property I don't even know I own. And even if I do know, I don't really care because I've got so many to deal with. I'll get to it when I get to it. And unfortunately, that's the world in which we live in right now. And our community has been seriously impacted over the last 10 years in that area because we have a far greater number of absentee owners than we did at one time. Thank you. Who's next?
I'd like to follow up a little bit on some codes. I'm a realtor. I know there's several people in here that are realtors, and so I'm probably getting ready to offend some of you. We have got signs that are saying Coldwell Banker, home for sale. We've got a sign right next to it that says Brookshire Hathaway, home for sale, so on, so on, so on. So as a realtor, I don't like those signs. You would think I'd love them. I don't like them. I think it makes our city look bad. I think it makes our county look bad. So I place those phone calls to the city. I place those phone calls to the county. And from what I'm hearing, and I believe this was, I'm not going to say which one it was from, the county or the city, but I have been told that there is verbiage that our attorneys need to look at because we cannot enforce that code anymore. And those signs need to come down. Our attorneys need to look at that verbiage. Directional signs, yes. You got 6 of them sitting on one corner. It's not a good look, guys. So we need to have our attorneys take a look at that and see if we can get some verbiage. And may I go with a second, or shall we come back with it? Okay, as far as the downtown corridor, I can't see. So I'm wondering, does the downtown corridor go down to Fairburn Road? It does not. No. Okay. Okay, because the city, some of our businesses that we have in the city maybe need a freshen look. And I know that we can't make a city a business unless we put some sort of a code on there that it has to be brought up. The colors that we're using downtown. I know there's a historic society. I know that we used to be able to determine what colors went on in that historic society. We can't do that anymore. When I go down the street and I see a sunflower yellow house, you think I'm going to take my client down that street? I'm going to bypass that street. We've got to start making our cities look better. We can't expect them to enforce something that we're not looking after ourselves.
Signage. Woo, that was loud. Just to directional signage. I actually have an item on the agenda for next month to talk about signage because we're moving to the political season. So we know that's going to be an issue. So I want to talk about that before qualifying starts. So Devin Hooper, the planner, just whispered something in my ear. So you will hear some changes about that. As far as regulation of color, that was taken out, predates me. Gary, you may know when it was taken out, regulating color in the historic district.
Yeah. The Supreme Court cases related to historic preservation always gave the public a right to the exterior appearance of a historic property, but it never extended that right to say it can't be sunflower yellow. I mean, that's a matter of taste and legally has no standing. So the Historic Preservation Commission, I don't know that they ever tried to mandate color changes.
Yeah, so that's something that we haven't visited as it relates to Fairburn Road. So, recently, and I know Mr. Conley was here, he's on the Historic Preservation Commission, and I think Mr. Conley is actually the chair of the Historic Preservation Commission. So if you would like to reach out to him for questions or concerns there, Devin Hooper is our staff person who works with the HPC. As it relates to Fairburn Road, we did do a study about 7 years ago. I think were you on council when we did the study with TSW on form-based codes, Councilman Adams? Okay, so it was maybe about 6 years ago. At the time, we were looking at zoning to help direct development on Fairburn Road. At that time, that group of elected officials weren't necessarily interested in moving in that direction. So we can go back and take a revisit of Fairburn Road. Fairburn Road would be something I would consider a redevelopment corridor, which means that, okay, we can put in place an overlay district, some variety of zoning, but it's only gonna come when something leaves. So it's not gonna be something that we would go in and you just tear down and you do an overall swipe. It would, because we wouldn't, for instance, over off of Spring Road in Cobb County, that whole development there, Belmont Hills, that area that was torn down, some developer came in and bought that, and that's probably not gonna be something that, would happen here.
Can you hear me? No. Marcia, also, you might want to mention, well, I'll mention, we will be looking at because of the 92 reroute, part of Fairburn Road will become a city street, and we're looking at some revitalization efforts from a city standpoint to take back over that street and do some things differently.
If I misspoke, I'm sorry. I am not looking at the Fairburn Road area. I am looking at the Bankhead Highway leading over to Fairburn Road, Church Street leading over to Fairburn Road. Those, we're trying to bring people down to downtown Douglasville. Those were the places I was actually looking at.
Touching on what she was saying about this is your community. Yes, this is our community. And if there is something that we all can do as a community to help code enforcement, like cut grass, if there's a place that needs their grass cut, let's take a day, go do it. That's what Paulding County does. That's what the people in Atlanta do. Let's have a community day to where we can all go out and clean up an area. And I think that would relieve our code enforcement somewhat if that can be done. That's just an idea.
That's a great idea. I mean, sometimes there's problems, but we don't have, we don't know whether the person living there is elderly and can't get it done. I think Owen just volunteered to cut everybody's grass in the city, who needs it. But we can't control everyone, and sometimes you have to have the code enforcement there to get people encouraged. And a lot of times it's if you start looking around, it's a lot of non-resident owners who they're just not here. They don't see it. They've got some yard person that they don't really keep track of, So anyway, we can all do that, and I encourage churches to do that. The cities, that's not really the city's part, but your comment is, let's try to take care of your neighbor and do what we can. Oh, and I'm sorry I volunteered you.
Make sure this thing doesn't blow up on me. Totally get the frustration over code enforcement, absentee owners, all that stuff. But the fact of the matter is, the biggest festering mess in this county belongs to the city of Douglasville. And Mike, you and I have had exchanged emails on this. Typically, a neighborhood has the benefit of the city government to call code enforcement when there's something wrong in their neighborhood, but the Mill Village neighborhood has been inflicted by the mess that is the old mill site, owned by the city of Douglasville, for 5 years since that thing is burned down. 5 years, okay? We can't say it's an absentee landlord. We can't say we don't know how to get in touch with them. We can't say anything like that. Mike, you told me in an email that you didn't think that it was a high enough priority for the city to clean up the mill right now. Well, it's a high enough priority for us to redo the Welcome Center. It's a high enough priority to redo the greens on the golf course. I'm glad to hear that you've plugged some money into the budget, but I ask you, and it amazed me because I looked at the ward map to see who the residents of the Mill Village could go to be their advocate, and you are their council member. And I find it amazing that you just abandoned your constituents and have left them to literally walk out their front door every morning and look at that festering mess that is owned by the city. And I would like to hear a pledge from both of you as the ward councilman for that ward to decide that it's the city's priority to take its responsibility as a property owner and clean up the mess now.
Gary, and I appreciate your communication with me on that. And it's not that I don't believe it's a priority. The problem with the city in any type of governmental situation, I mean, you work for government, there's always priorities that are going on. I think it's very much a priority, but right now the whole area is in transition. But I appreciate your comments. The city has heard that, and we're taking steps to rectify that. So, although sometimes it's frustrating, we can't always get directly to what you prioritize. We try to prioritize on the best needs of the city as a whole. And with that area over there in transition, I was in disagreement with you, and I'm sorry, sometimes we're not going to be, sometimes we're right on the same page. But sometimes we're just wrong. I'm wrong sometimes. But it takes the city, and this is why these meetings are so important, because you, the citizens, have to come out. I didn't disregard what you were saying at all. I told you my opinion at the time, but I do appreciate you. You've got a lot of experience that I've learned from through the years. So at this point in time, the city has designated and put money in the budget to look at it. That area is developing. I think it does need to be cleaned up. We are concerned about what gray area may be involved, and we could get into testing. There's some other complicated issues that once we get into, we may be on the hook for financially. But it's a problem. We're working on it. The mayor herself has identified it as an issue that she wants to have fixed. So, the moral of this story is don't get on Facebook and put your opinions about things, because they can be taken the wrong way. I did not mean to imply that this was not a priority in my district. Okay, I won't email you anymore. But anyway, Gary, we go back and forth. Yeah, I did block you on Facebook, but I still love you. Anyway, I appreciate you being here. We are working toward that. We recognize it. I wasn't even on the council when they bought it. It's been there a long time, and we're working to rectify that. Is that good? Are we working in the right direction for you?
I'd just like to see it become a priority, as would the residents of the Mill Village who are your constituents.
Right, and it is. The city council, the mayor, and the council have made it a priority in our budget this year. So that's all I got to say about that.
I would like to bring up another subject which might help us bring some revenue to our city. I don't know how long the caterer has got a contract for in the city. Can anyone answer that? 2 more years? I know a lot of people. I hear a lot of people talk. I've been to the city many times and eaten that food there. It's not great, y'all. It's not good. They have a cash bar only. I don't know how many of them drink, how many don't. Most of us don't carry cash anymore. So the cash bar only, I don't understand why it was, I kind of do understand why it was taken away that we could have different caterers in there. Probably because of the kitchen cleanup, and how it was going to be left at the time. I do understand that part of it, but I do think that it is time to possibly get someone else in there to cater.
April, I'm going to start on that because that was an issue that I asked that question when I first came on the council, and if I'm not mistaken, if my dates are right, my signature or my name is on the conference center as one of those that was here when it was built. It was started before I came into office, and I think, if I'm not mistaken, Ms. Hampton, I asked the same question. Why do we have one caterer? Why can we not have multiple caterers? And the answer that I was given, and I'm not necessarily convinced, but it's the answer, and it's the one that we abide by, is that the kitchen was not designed for multiple caterers to come in. It's a one single caterer kitchen the way it was built. To retrofit it would be extremely expensive, and you also have the situation with the alcohol license being in the name of a caterer. In other words, the state will not allow us to have multiple caterers come in and use it for that cash bar unless the city is the holder of the license. Sure.
Okay. As it comes to code enforcement, I know that my husband and I have talked to you or a couple of times anyway, about putting a police patrol in the downtown proper area in the evenings. Every time we go to our buildings, and we always find beer bottles. Greg can attest. People are always urinating and, for the first time, defecating in the alley behind our building. And I don't know, it's not every time, but it's very often. And, I want to know, is there a possibility? Is the precinct office that's downtown manned? And is it possible to get a foot patrol in the evening? That's it.
There's going to be 2 different aspects to that. There is the code enforcement aspect, then there's the police aspect. We do have patrols that will go downtown. Code enforcement, I don't have enough people to work it 24/7, 7 days a week, so they basically work from 8 to 4 every Monday through Friday. But I'm sure it's possible to get some patrols more, a little more heavy down there.
We're building it as a walkable area, and now we've got the antique shop going in on the corner of Hamilton. We've got an antique shop going in the old medicine shop.
Right.
There's a new bath and body place. We're trying to get people to come walk downtown to shop, and it's embarrassment, like we said.
Yes, ma'am. We do have patrols that do walking patrols at night downtown. We do it on the weekends as well. We try to do as much as we can during the day. There's The daytime is usually a higher volume of traffic as far as calls for the police department goes. Code enforcement, we do go downtown. I try to, right now I don't have anybody to dedicate specifically to that, but that was one of the things that we had discussed with Mr. Miller. The extra code enforcement they got, that he got us, I wanted to try to take that person and put them in the downtown area so we can have a more concentrated patrol. So we're working towards that. It's just going to take a minute or two.
Yeah, I
but
understand. And the only thing is, in particular, it's the little alleyway.
The
that
corridor
goes
there.
between Scott Camp's building and mine.
Because it's out of the way.
That little alleyway. It's not wide enough to really use for walking, to pass through, but it's wide enough for one person to walk through. And that's where we find beer bottles and bags of trash, it's just unsightly and,
Yeah, we have officers that go downtown. We have a bicycle unit that goes through. But a lot of times they may not be coming through at the right time to catch the guy that's dropping the beer bottle. We can't be omnipresent everywhere. So, but that's one thing that we have told our patrol officer in that particular zone to get out and do a little walking, get out, ride that bike. So we'll do a little better there if you want to see.
It's why we're dependent on the citizens to let us know what's going on. So if you see something, let us know.
I have a question. I'm not from this area, but I know you guys have a very aggressive plan to drive tourism, and you're developing a brand. I just thought the public might want to know about that a little bit.
Hello? That's a good question. That's probably a Marcia question, though. Just real quick, we've, Douglasville and all of our associated organizations have different various brands, and this year at our planning day, the mayor and council decided that we wanted to develop a brand for the city and stay by that. So, Marcia, can you give us some more information on that?
And I'll give you just an overview of how we got there, and then Ms. Hunter, our communications director, can give you basically a timeline as to where we are. It's a project that's spearheaded by her department. One of the things we do recognize, as Councilman Miller said, that there's a variety of brands, logos, whatever you want to call it, all out in the community. And we also recognize that you as a citizen, each and every one of you, receive your information very differently. There may be some of you in here who don't access social media. Some of you may not text. Some of you may still read the paper. So we're trying to come up with the best way that we can communicate to you about the services and the things that we do. We also recognize that internally sometimes we operate as our own individual units, so we want to make certain that in-house that we're doing all the things that we can do collectively to be branded together, so that when we send out a message to you, you recognize that's a message from the city of Douglasville about a service that we provide, and it looks indicative of what you expect of us as a local government.
We went through a RFP process where we had the opportunity to have firms bid on the RFP that we posted out on the website. We had 8 individual firms, 3 local from the area that actually submitted firms, and then 3 outside of the area. Mayor and council have selected Chandler Thinks. They're out of the Nashville, Tennessee area. They'll be kicking off with us with a kickoff phone call with the department on July the 7th. That's a Friday. And then we're looking from there of them conducting an internal assessment of the communications department during the week and meeting with department directors as well as mayor and council and those type entities during the week of August the 12th, 13th, and 14th. Then we'll fast forward a month ahead into the month of September, and we'll be bringing that to the community and looking for public input and focus groups that will be following their guideline, their plan. So if you're interested in putting information and being part of those focus groups tonight, see me. We will sign you up and make sure that you're part of that plan and that process.
But the idea is I've been with the city 11 years as communications director. Douglasville has not had an identity. We've used our city seal as our logo or as our kind of official stamp, but we really don't have a way in which we market ourselves, not only just here locally, but in the region, within the metro Atlanta area, as well as within the state. And we're looking, and we've talked about economic development and growth here in the area. This is one of those ways in which we need to market and make ourselves competitive. So our department, I want to acknowledge Jason Post, our station manager, Steve Jones, Chris Dixon. I want to say I have a tremendous team. These guys do a lot of work for our communications department. You may not know, but we oversee City TV, which is what we were founded on 11 years ago. But we also manage the city's website. We do some social media, press releases, special projects from our city manager's office, from the mayor's office. We also help support council as well, and just a vast array of ways that we internally support other departments, as well as externally try to keep you, the citizens, informed with everything that's going on across the city. So we want to do that in a most excellent way. And we have, if you're interested in being part of those groups, please see me. We'll add you to that list.
And this has been a long time. This has been a long time in the coming. I remember when I was running 4 years ago, I was wanting to put an icon on my sign, and I kept looking around the city of Douglasville, and I couldn't find an icon. We're just not recognized. We're not recognizable. So the city is also, aside from the branding and marketing, we're developing a pavilion in the Hunter Park area for the Masonic Lodge, or with the Masonic Lodge. We bought the plans for that so we can start building our brand out here. You look around the parks, you see Douglasville. You look around Jesse Davis Park, you see Douglasville. You look at the buildings and you see Douglasville. So we've got a plan in place, which I think is a new concept. We are following that plan, and I've got to thank Madam Mayor for allowing us to do that, because it's, what's the old adage? If you plan to fail, you fail to plan. Did I just mess that up? If you fail to plan, you plan to fail. See, I didn't have it thought out very well. But we are following that plan. We have it articulated, and we're making great strides on a lot of different things. Gary, I saw you had a...
I may be a voice of one, but I would say, as you go about rebranding the city, feel free to lose the dead tree.
Hello. It's 8. Does everybody know what the dead tree is? The skint chestnut and the history behind it and everything. Okay, it's 8 o'clock. We are at the end of our hour. If there's any more comments, or Mark, if you want to say something further. I appreciate everybody being here, and if there are any more questions or concerns, please articulate them. One thing I would recommend that the downtown folks that are here look into, it's not a city issue, but apparently the county is working toward a bus system that's going to affect the downtown area. It is not a city issue. I don't have a lot of information on it. If that is an issue for you, I would contact your county commissioner. That's all I have. Thank you for being here.
Thank you, folks. I just wanted to echo on that and say thank you for each of you coming, spending your time with us this evening. I hope it's been informative, but please feel free to reach out to us, email, cell phone, home phone, however you might desire to, and we'll look forward to doing this again real soon. Thank you all. Have a good night.